Welcome to Inside Politics with Kevin Klein, Jeff Currier, and Royce Koop, where we break down the stories shaping our country.
Welcome to another edition of Inside Politics. I'm Kevin Klein, joined by two of my Winnipeg Sun colleagues, Royce Koop, who is also a professor of political sciences at the University of Manitoba, and Jeff Currier. Today, we wanted to talk about, we're recording on Friday, Good Friday, because we wanted to talk about the national debate in English last night. I'm going to let you guys start. I have my feelings about this after watching it. I'm incredibly concerned for a couple of reasons. But Jeff, let's start with you and get your thoughts on the overall, event.
I'd like to see us rethink the format that we use for these debates. I'm not sure how informative they truly are. I would prefer, rather than these debates or these exchanges, which feature all of the leaders uttering varying degrees of falsehoods, and there are many. And for people who want to do the fact checkers, you can follow the fact checkers the day before, the day of, or the day after. But all of these leaders are uttering falsehoods. I would prefer to see two or three really quality journalists going one-on-one, having each leader face a panel of journalists and get grilled for an hour. I think we would learn a lot more than we do in these debates, which is really, it's more showbiz than it is anything else. I don't think they're as informative as they could be or revealing as they could or should be. I just don't like the format.
Yeah, on the question of the format, I think we could make changes, but my sense was that compared to some of the previous debates we've had in recent years, this one was pretty good. It gave the candidates the opportunity to speak directly to Canadians, to kind of make clear their positions, their policy positions in response to the questions. But it also gave them the opportunity to get into it with one another. And actually, I found when there was open debate, that was when we started to see kind of the true character of these candidates shine through. Those were the kind of defining moments of this candidate or of this debate, when they were able to engage with one another. I think one change that could be made is that there was an awful lot of interrupting, a lot of speaking over one another, largely because of Singh. We can come back to this later on if you want to, Kevin. But in the US, in the lead up to the presidential debates between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, there's a lot of debate about whether or not the mics would be muted when the candidates weren't speaking. And I actually think we need to have that conversation up here right now as well. It made it's really, it's not just a kind of stylistic thing. I don't like it when I get interrupted. It's that, voters want to hear what the candidates have to say. We have a right to hear. And when you're constantly interrupting, speaking over the other people, that makes it hard. It hurts the democratic quality of the debates. I think we should be talking about that if we want to think about revising the format.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on the format myself. I sat there and I watched it. I had some thoughts going into it. I was looking for certain things, and I was quite shocked for a couple of reasons. Number one, this had happened the day before in the French debate. They wouldn't allow the leader of the Green Party to participate in the French debate because they didn't have seats all across Canada in every riding. They didn't make an attempt to do that. But then they allowed the Parti Québécois. I am so tired.
It's the Bloc. It's not the Parti
Sorry,
Québécois.
thank you. Yeah, the Bloc. The Bloc. Thank you for that correction. So they allowed that, and I'm tired of that hypocrisy. And then as I'm watching it, I'm feeling a little upset by that, by democracy. I don't disagree. If you don't have a candidate in every riding, you shouldn't be at this debate. But here we put Quebec on a pedestal. And he didn't really want to get engaged with ideas or changes for Canada. Really, I watched it as somebody who was negotiating for power because he assumes he's going to be the party that's going to block up the Liberal Party. And that frightens me. It frightens me from all kinds of perspectives because I heard if you listen to him, they said to him and Jeff, we had talked about this some time ago and you didn't think it was that big of a deal, but he brought up separation. They brought it up. Are you going to put the separation rhetoric away while Canada is in crisis? And until the negotiations are done. But he thinks Quebec should be included in the negotiations with the U.S. To me, Having him there was an insult to the rest of Canada, and it certainly showed that it wasn't a fair debate. It wasn't a democratic debate because I'm not a Green Party supporter, but he is a national leader. They are a national party. The Bloc are not, and they admittedly are not. He admitted on stage he has no desire to be the Prime Minister of Canada. He is there to make sure Quebec gets what they want. That really bothered me last night.
Yeah, it's an old problem that we have in Canada, and there was at least one occasion where the Bloc Québécois was in fact Her Majesty's loyal opposition, which which makes things a little bit awkward. That a party devoted to separatism is Her Majesty's loyal opposition, and certainly during the Harper minority government years, the Bloc Québécois exercised or had a certain degree of influence, at least, if not authority. It is really an awkward thing. So what are the ramifications, Royce, if you don't include the Bloc? What do you do? I mean, certainly in the French debate, I don't know that you have any choice. Then in a French debate where you're talking to the province, primarily to the province of Quebec, how do you exclude this party that has the greatest number of seats in the province of Quebec? How do you not include them?
Well, the first point is there's lots of parties that we exclude from the debates. There's lots of registered parties in Canada, including the People's Party, which is not that far behind the Green Party in public support, but they didn't meet the criteria. And the Greens did right up until a day before the French language debate based on the criteria that the commission set. Now, for the Greens, it looks like they had engaged in some questionable behavior. In order to participate in the debates, you have to have one of the criteria you can meet is you have to have a certain number of candidates ready to go for the party. They submitted a very long list, but then like a third of the candidates couldn't make it on the ballot. They couldn't get the 100 signatures that were necessary, which is kind of pathetic. Sorry, that's kind of a harsh word. Or it turned out the party was actually, their spokesperson said they were holding candidates back to help another party, to help the Liberal Party. And so there was pushback against this, and the commission ultimately decided that the Greens couldn't participate on that basis. It was the right decision.
Yeah, but Royce, what Jeff said, like, why do you have to let the party, or I keep wanting to call them that, the Bloc? Why do you have to allow the Bloc? I mean, that was a waste of my time.
You don't have to. You can say one of the criteria is that you have to run candidates in more than one province, and that would be, to my mind, a perfectly reasonable criteria. People in Quebec would cry bloody murder over that. The Bloc would go crazy, but I think that's a perfectly reasonable criteria. It occurred to me, one of the problems in Canada with our electoral system is that it rewards regional parties. The Bloc doesn't get any, or I got to check this, they don't do that much better in terms of votes than the NDP, but the Bloc is going to get tons more seats than the NDP because all their vote is concentrated in Quebec. And that's bad for the country. When the electoral system rewards regional parties, maybe we should start looking at ways to fight back against that. And one of the ways would be to create a criteria for participation in the debates that you can't be, it's not in the national interest to have a single province party participating in the debates. It's supposed to be a national debate. And it's really not fair to people outside Quebec that you have their party in both of the debates. They're only running candidates in one province.
Well, Jeff, I'll go back to the fact that I listened to him. I heard him negotiating. I heard him telling, as long as this gets done for Quebec, as long as that gets done for Quebec, nothing was really, and you're right, the moderator didn't interrupt it and say, well, this is about Canada. From somebody like yourself who's covered politics for a long time, really, isn't it the right decision to say, no, look, you're not a national party. You do not participate on this stage. We're pandering to them.
Yeah, and that's a fair point, Kevin. I don't know how you get around ignoring a party that garners the kind of support that it does, albeit regionally, especially speaking primarily to the French population in Quebec. I don't know how you tell that party you don't matter enough to participate in this debate. I don't know how you get around that. And I know you can say, well, you're not a national party. Right. And so you've now excluded a huge swath of the Canadian electorate from participating in the debate.
Okay, but what's going to happen? I mean, how many people across Canada do they represent? I guess there's a percentage.
Well, across Canada, nobody.
Right. No, correct. Nobody.
right.
Right. But now what happens if we do get like, I hope not, but what happens if you get a liberal, government that is propped up by the Bloc? I mean, Western Canada's gone. I mean, Manitoba will probably want to stay because we get so much money, but that money's not going to be coming from transfer payments when Alberta, Saskatchewan take a ride. And why would they stick around? Why would you? I really felt anybody west of Thunder Bay last night, there was no reason to watch that show. There was nothing on there for me. Polyev tried. Polyev tried, kept very calm. Singh acted like a 12-year-old by interrupting Polyev at every opportunity. He didn't interrupt Carney that much. He never interrupted the Bloc. I mean, it was just a waste of time for anybody west of Thunder Bay.
Yeah, it's the only reason the Bloc wins as many seats as it does is because of the electoral system. And I'm probably gonna start blabbing more about electoral reform in the months to come after this election result that could be coming. For the interrupting, I learned something last night by reading some strategists' tweets. The idea of clips in terms of media content, the importance of clips, clips that are used on social media, in parties' advertisements. And in a lot of ways, when candidates in the leaders debate, they're making statements. One of the big things they can do is actually produce high quality clips that can be used later on by the parties. And the thought was that one of the things that Singh was doing is he was making it hard for Pierre to clip his statements. He was interrupting every 10 seconds. I thought it was, if that's what he was doing, then fine, good for you. You short-circuited some advertisements, but I don't know. You said, Kevin, you look like a 12-year-old. Yeah, I'd say more like a 6-year-old or a 4-year-old. It hurt the debate. I couldn't stand it. And it hurts the democratic quality of these debates. We have a right to hear what the candidates have to say, and when there's a deliberate strategy to get in the way of that, I don't like that at all. Singh is probably going to lose his own seat, and after that performance last night, he deserves it, I think.
Jeff, you've turned off a number of microphones in your time. Would you have turned off his?
Yeah, again, I think I made my point about how I feel about the format right off the top of this. I don't like the format, and that's one of the reasons for it. But yes, I would absolutely have muted the microphones. I'd have muted everybody's microphone except for the speaker. I think that's if you're stuck with this format, which I don't like. If that's the format you're committed to, then I think you have to make allowances for leaders trying to interrupt and try to talk over and behave like juveniles. And if they're going to behave like juveniles, then you have to treat them like juveniles and cut their mics off. If it comes down to that, I mean, it's a sorry state that you have to even have this conversation. But Canadians are not well served by debates of that type. They just aren't.
So, I want to talk about the possibility of that coalition government again. I want to talk about that in a couple of seconds. I want to talk a little bit now about, and then I also want to talk a little bit about what happened at the end with the whole media issue and them not taking questions and that turning into a gong show and just, really embarrassing, I think, for anybody involved in media and anybody in the country. But right now, let's have a conversation about the debate itself. Who came out on top in your mind? What were the big moments? If there was one or two big moments for you, what would those one or two big moments be, Jeff?
There weren't any for me. There weren't any big moments for me.
Okay.
I didn't hear anything that I didn't expect to hear.
Yeah. Nothing changed your mind. Nothing made you go, oh, good.
No. I heard the usual falsehoods by all the leaders, and so well, okay. I've been listening to you guys say the same things that are not true for the last couple of months. So give me something fresh. Tell me something true. I didn't hear anything that made me go, oh, that's new. That's interesting. Oh, you just scored some points there. I didn't hear any of that.
So you're saying the theme song should be that, what was it, a Fleetwood Mac song? Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. That should have been the opening song for the debate.
Yeah, and there's plenty of them. I mean, we can document a couple of them here if you wish. I mean, Mark Carney claiming back in 2008 that Canada was never in recession. Yeah. In point of fact, we were. He also took disproportionate credit for getting us out of that when it was really Jim Flaherty and Stephen Harper who did that.
Yeah.
Jagmeet Singh claiming that when Polyev was in charge of housing that he only built 6 houses. Well, that is false. Polyev claiming that Bill C-69 squelched all these energy products projects when a number of them were already dead before Bill C-69 was even put on the table. All of these guys are telling the Canadian population things that are demonstrably false.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult for me to be impressed with any of these people.
Yeah. Should have a buzzer, so every time they lie, a buzzer goes off and it stops.
I'd make them all wear a shock collar. Every time they say something that's not true, somebody can just give them a bit of a zap.
Well, it wouldn't be much of a show, just a lot of this going on. Royce, your thoughts, big moments.
I mean, one of the problems that people like us have is we're so up close. We're like watching everything, and so then you get to the debate, and it's kind of feel like, well, we've kind of heard all this before. It's not really exciting. But for most Canadians, they don't follow politics as closely as we do. That's a compliment rather than a criticism. You've got people have lives they need to lead, and for them, the debates would have been viewed in quite a different way. And I thought that Poilievre won the debate. He consistently made good points. He wasn't as aggressive as he is as leader of the opposition. He kept that in check. He responded to criticisms well. And, I thought that last night after the debate, but this morning when I was watching some of the clips, it occurred to me the number of points that he made, that I didn't notice at the time. He actually kind of consistently was scoring, consistently making good points, consistently making good criticisms. I thought he was the winner last night, and this morning that just was reinforced to me. Now, his strongest points came near the end of the debate. He got emotional when he was talking about meeting people on the campaign trail, their struggles in life. That's a new thing for Poilievre, the softer side of Poilievre, which I wrote about in the Sun tomorrow. He had a very strong closing argument connecting his policies to some of the struggles Canadians are having. And in a quick poll that Abacus did after the debate, we actually got some really interesting results that reflect that. People that watched the whole debate far and away thought that Poilievre won. He did the
both
most
of them, right? Both of them who watched the whole debate?
Yeah. No.
How many people? Many people are watching the whole debate?
I did.
I think it was about a third of the people that he polled watched the whole thing. They thought that Poilievre killed it. But people that only watch
that's a pretty high number, right, Royce, for that many people to watch the whole debate.
That's unusual. And the overall number
it shows that there is interest. There is interest in this election.
Yes,
the voter turnout is likely to be quite high.
Yes, just let me finish this because it's very cool.
Yeah.
Whereas people that only watched a little bit of the debate thought that Carney won. And so the more that people saw of Poilievre, the more they liked him. The opposite was true for Carney. And so, yeah, and you're right, Jeff, there does seem to be real engagement. I was reading this morning that in some advanced polls, people are going first thing this morning to vote. You can vote today. It's huge lineups. And so we might get really good turnout in this election, and that warms the cockles of my heart comes to Canadian democracy.
So Jeff, before
at the advanced poll, sorry, just as a quick aside, at the advanced poll up the street from where I live, hour and a half wait.
Wow.
People are showing up. Now it's a stat holiday.
Fantastic.
So.
I was just going to note that I have the ability to mute your microphones.
Okay, that's.
So I want to talk. Yeah. So Royce, you brought this up. You talked about, when you looked this morning, you were looking at the clips and all that, and you're doing some research on the debate, which we all probably did, right? We all wanted to take a look, and there's different media takes on all this. My column in the Winnipeg Sun today is I'm very concerned about the possibility of a Bloc Liberal coalition for 4 more years. I think we'll get the same if not worse policy than we've had before that will focus a lot on Quebec. Let's talk about the media. Because I really believe the misinformation is not just coming from the people that were on the stage that night. I'm seeing it, and I'm going to blame all media on this one. I'm seeing it from the lefties. I'm seeing it from the righties. I'm seeing all these different things come out, and I'm so disappointed and shocked at how the CBC refers to some of the rebel news. And I know how you feel, Jeff, but still, they're human beings. And if I was to be on television and say those people, I would have been attacked by the CBC if I was a politician. But it's okay for them to do. So let's talk about how the CBC is turning this. Let's talk about how the media is turning it. Corey Teneku is one that they had on CTV. I can't understand why. Like, why would you have him on? But he was on there, and I want to get your feedback on that. Are you seeing representation or honest representation from the media take on the analysis that you're looking at today? Royce, we'll go with you first.
Well, we had a lot of drama in terms of the media and the debates, and uh, I think the first general point is the debate commission really messed this up. They didn't want to have some of these independent media outlets there in the scrum. The rebel took them to court. They lost. Then, for some reason, they had a huge number of questions after the French debate. And then the commission suddenly decided to not have the scrum, not have the journalist questions after the English debate because there was safety concerns or whatever. That's really unfortunate. A lot of the debate commission has not performed well in this election. It's almost shocking, and so we certainly need to clean house. I think even rethink the whole commission approach. Um, in terms of the media, we know that independent media are important, and we should we should recognize that, and they should be allowed to participate in important events like this. They should be able to ask questions. Now, one thing I'm not sure I'm answering your question, Kevin, but
No, you're not answering it at all.
okay, what was the question again? What was the coverage like?
The take on what the media are saying today, is it a reflective of what you think, or is it again, are they controlling a narrative and trying to direct a narrative? Because I heard Carney talking as many times as he could about Trump and how Trump's ruining the our economy and he's a threat. We got to worry about Trump. Trump, 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 Trump. Are you seeing the media reflect the debate properly today, or is it more signaling and positioning?
It's not bad. It's not bad. I think that Polyev did so well. Well, he did well enough last night that it's hard for that to be denied. Even media outlets that have been pretty hostile to Polyev had to kind of grudgingly admit he did a good job. And so, in terms of that kind of horse race analysis, it's not too bad. But a lot of the coverage it's been pretty superficial, I think. I'd actually be interested in hearing what you think about this, Jeff.
Yeah, I think it has been pretty superficial. There's been a lot of talk about which party had to drop candidates, and that's the kind of sideshow stuff. And when you have an outfit like the Rebel News, which is really an activist publicity stunt organization, I mean, if you want to call yourselves journalists, then behave like journalists, not like people just looking to get arrested for publicity stunt purposes so you can drive more hits on your website from the right wing wackos, because that's really what it comes down to. I think there has been a lack of depth. There's been a lack of genuine analysis in this election campaign. The parsing of the parties' economic platforms and what the ramifications will be. Here's your promises. Okay, let's take a look at these promises. What are they going to cost? What will the end results be? Will they work? Have your promises in the past worked? I'm not seeing enough of that. I'm seeing a lot of the who can stand up to Donald Trump kind of rhetoric. Well, anybody can stand up to Donald Trump. Right? Any of our prime ministers will stand up to Donald Trump on a national stage.
Yeah.
I'm far less concerned about that than I am about where this country is going to go economically. Remember, right now, in terms of GDP growth over the last 9 years, Canada is dead last among G7 nations. Last in GDP growth. We've grown under the Trudeau government, we've grown our GDP by about 3%, while the Americans have grown theirs by 9%. That's the kind of thing we should be talking about, not who's going to stand up to Donald Trump or how much we're going to be paying for grapes this year.
Or what's Quebec going to get out of it, as that kept getting in?
Yeah, you're concerned about a coalition, Kevin. Based on the current polls, there's going to be an overwhelming majority Liberal government. If you look at the polls today, if they're polling 43 or 44% of the popular vote, it's going to be a huge sweep.
Well, I think
coalition is not going to come into play.
I think the Bloc might have different polling then, because you can tell he firmly believes There's going to be that Carney, if he wins, will need the Bloc to hold government. He was making it pretty clear, and I don't think he would make those assertions on stage if he felt that it was just going to be a walk away. And he made mention that he's tried to reach out to Carney, and Carney's never returned his call during this time. So I don't know if that's because they have polling that shows they're going to do better in Quebec than what we're hearing. Because if the Bloc does a little bit better in Quebec and the Liberals take Ontario, sure, the Liberals win, but then they do need support in the House, right? That's why I say that. So
Yeah.
I thought the negotiating was pretty hard, and he's a pretty smart guy. I give him credit
Oh,
for
yeah.
that. He's a very smart guy, and I thought he's not doing this to play a game. He was pretty serious about that negotiating on stage.
Yeah. Now you can win a majority government in Canada without dominating Quebec.
Right.
Stephen Harper did it. And if Mark Carney's numbers poll, if the polling that we're seeing is accurate right across Canada, he could pull it off. It's not impossible though that the Bloc might have some influence in the next parliament. It's not impossible for sure.
It is possible, but it's tough. I mean, what's helping the Liberals right now, what's making a majority government more likely is the NDP absolute collapse. And the debates are not going to reverse that. And so that makes a Liberal majority government more likely based on the polls right now. I think we're going to see things tighten up. I think we're going to see the polls get closer between now and the election. And if the Bloc can hold on to a respectable number of seats in Quebec, and it consistently does that, that makes it very hard for any party to win a majority government. That's kind of the new reality. As long as the Bloc is around, majority governments are going to be very hard to see. And so we might well see a Liberal government that is reliant on the Bloc to survive after this election.
So I want to end on this. When you talked about the polling and it getting tighter, both of you followed the United States election, and we heard an awful lot that Camilla was close. It looked like it was going to be Camilla that won. You know, the polling was showing, CNN, everybody, you know, oh, this is going to be a close, this is going to be tight, probably the tightest race in American history. And then the night of the election, it was a blowout, like a blowout. Do you see that happening here, maybe?
Could happen. Remember when Justin Trudeau won his first majority government? Nobody saw that one coming. You know, 6 weeks prior to that election, we were talking about the NDP maybe being the official opposition in Canada. The next thing you know, Justin Trudeau came out of nowhere and swept the Maritimes, took every seat in the Maritimes. I mean, things just flip-flopped within a matter of a few weeks. It could happen. I don't know if Pierre Poilievre is going to be able to make up an 8-point difference between now and the election. I think Royce may be right that things may tighten up a little bit, but it's a big gap. It's a lot to make up.
Yeah, there's this kind of contested idea of shy Tories. Pollsters have a hard time accessing conservatives, so conservatives are more likely to not admit they're voting for conservative parties. I don't quite understand it, but it is a kind of documented phenomenon. It makes it hard always to trust the polling that we're seeing. The problem for the conservatives, the Liberals have the idea of an efficient vote. They're if they're far enough ahead in Ontario, for example, it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Liberals could win a huge number of seats in Ontario by very small margins in almost all of them. And so even a small Liberal lead can turn into a big Liberal government, a potentially majority government. And so Polyev doesn't have to he doesn't have to beat the Liberals in the popular vote in order to hold them to minority government. He just has to get closer than where he is right now. I could see that happening over the next few days.
All right, guys. Well, did I miss anything? Want to wrap up, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I look forward to talking as things heat up in the election. Again, you can read Royce and Jeff in the Winnipeg Sun. You can go online at winnipegsun.com and read them. As always, we want you to like and follow our YouTube page as well. Until next week, see you later, guys.